start on this beast today. Going to be going with all kinds of Alpine goodies to go inside of it and a Sony head unit. Should be a fun build.
Take the radio out of this thing. It's only 2 Phillips screws, one on the left and one on the right of the radio. Oh, but also, you gotta take the whole dashboard out to get there. Little update, we got the whole dash out so we can get the radio out. Back seat's been removed, passenger seat's been removed. Get to the rear speakers pretty good. Know exactly where I'm running my power wire through the firewall. So next I'm gonna come back from lunch and take these door panels off, see what I need to do to get some adapters in here for the 6.5s. Story time. So we're on the passenger side door of this beautiful Lincoln. And as you can see, it still has the factory door skin, which I'm gonna haphazardly put up here in the air. All right, so factory speaker looked a little something like this. And the reason why it looked like this with the grill on top of it is because the door panel basically touches it the whole entire time. Well, the problem that we have is that the aftermarket speakers, which are these big bad boys, excuse the video, it all sticks out way too far, so it's gonna hit the door panel. So I have to think about this a little bit differently. So I was thinking, well, what if you just, instead of putting it on the outside of the door panel, what if you just brought it and put it on the inside of the door panel? So we're gonna make some adapters and make that happen. 1/2-inch spacer gets that tweeter just below the surface, and then I have the inside rabbited out so that whenever there's power on it, don't recommend using 12 volts, but I wanted to get a little bit more than the 9 volts from my tester, just to make sure that the X-Max wasn't going to touch the outside. And you can see it didn't. So we're going to see if it fits in the door depth-wise, make sure it's not too big and hitting the window, and see how to go from there. All right, kept it in the plastic bag so not to get any debris on the speaker while I was kind of running it through the door. The speaker's got to drop down through here, and then I got to walk it behind everything until it gets in its final location. I drilled 2 new holes right now just to see if the window clears, so now's the time to actually see if it does. Take my liner down here. All right. Moment of truth. See if we hear anything. All right. We have a failure. See what we can do next. See if we can get a better idea on what's going on here. Look at that. Just barely hits that window. So yeah, we're gonna have to get it. So to get a better example of what's happening is it's just barely touching that magnet. So probably gonna look for some different drivers because I really can't go thinner than that. If I do 5 1/4, I think I'll be safe. But I can't bring this thing any further forward or it's gonna hit the door panel and the surround's gonna hit the door. All right, checking the depth test again. Okay, we got about a good 1/8 inch, the 12 volts going directly to it. Now we are using a little thinner of spacers. So the gray is 3/8, the 1/2 inch is what I was using, that white was 1/2 inch. So we're gonna go down to 3/8, and we also traded the drivers out for some Helix i3s. These are a little bit more shallow. I think altogether we gained 3/8 of an inch. And in my honest opinion, I would like to have these instead of the Type R to begin with. So we're gonna see how these fit in the door now. All right, same test as earlier, but now we got our Helix drivers in there. So we're gonna do this with a little bit less confidence than we had last time and see where that gets us. Still touching, so gotta go another different route. You know, sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. Now I gotta be barely touching that thing. See what else we can come up with. Update on the Lincoln Continental. The guys at the main are trying to figure out what exactly we were going to do with the speakers. They got that all figured out while that was going on. Designed the dash kit, made it for the Sony radio, LC1 to control the sub level a little easier, analog, and then the mic placement. So I'm going to get this on the printer now. I went ahead and started designing the adapters for the 6x9s, and they were a component set, so I made it with a tweeter and then actually went to the factory locations, so no new holes in the vehicle. But what we did for the front speakers, we end up changing it over for the Morel Integras. These are like they're like 1 inch thick. I'll show them to you later on, but they're amazing. And because of that, we wanted that same sound signature, so we actually switched the 6x9 Alpine Type Rs to some Tempo Ultras, so that it's the same Morel flavor. That same signature sound will be the same throughout the whole entire vehicle. So a little back step, but furthermore, it's going to be a lot more cohesive system, and really happy. This is the back side of the dash kit. It was going to take 16 hours to print, so I went ahead and did some weight reduction on the back side, features that weren't really important to the actual process or build, and then now it's only going to take 5 hours. These are the Morel Integras. Beautiful looking speaker, but the cool feature is this. Look at that. You could install that thing wherever the heck you want. They sound amazing too. Lucky enough, there's not too much reverse engineering I have to do, because the adapters I made yesterday for the second round are a really good match. The speaker hole mount points are actually the same as well, which is amazing. Take the wins when you can get them. Ooh, pretty. I should have been a cowboy. Alright guys, either this is going to clear, or I'm moving to the west and going to start herding cattle. Beautiful, look at all that room too. Still got to tie my wires up, as you can see, but no problem with clearance. Morel Integras for the win. Alright, putting the driver's side together. Whoever decided to do this on a speaker install, shame on you. If this was you, you tell me, and you're grounded. Anyways, new speakers back there. Mounted without running the door that's already ruined, but you know, hey, what you gonna do? First print of the dash kit came out. A lot of things I'm gonna change about it, so there's definitely gonna be a version 2. But the bass knob worked out pretty good. The fitment of the bezel around the Sony radio didn't quite work out well, but the LC1 fit like a dream after you take it apart, of course, so that worked pretty good. Second dash kit for the Lincoln is on the way getting printed. I'm at the point now where it's like all the important stuff at the bottom is all done, so I'm trying to use up some spools of ASA that had barely really small amounts on it. I'm just blowing through them. So this kit would have took 5 hours, but I've gone through all of these and I got to switch it out every time, which may be a little bit of a waste of time, but it's the weekend and I'm just kind of having fun anyways. So blew all through those, trying to get the small spools to disappear. Made a little bit of a mess, so I kind of cleaned up my disorganized tools and disaster of a work area that I had. Got everything kind of stacked away here. Don't know if I showed this to you guys or not, but I got the adapters for the 6x9s for the rear of this thing, all made up. So back plate clears this around. The plate will mount to the car first. The original speakers look a little something like this. And there's a step for the sheet metal around the edge. So I basically just made a platform for that to get around as well. So they should bolt in pretty good. Doing little things at the shop. So this is the version 2. It's going to be ISO mounted, so mount for the back side with some screws on the side. Did some changes. I'll show you what those are in a little bit. And then I'm also going to go ahead and just install these in the back of the car real quick, and then hopefully have a game plan of what I'm doing with the subwoofer. Working that a little bit at home later on tonight, and then come back in and build the enclosure and mount the big old 6-channel Alpine amp. So version 1 of the kit, I had planned to basically use the bezel that comes with the radio and recess it in so that the faceplate, this piece here, was going to be relatively flush with the front of the dash kit. Well, that had a couple different obstacles that I didn't really like, one of which was the sizing was incorrect. But it just looked ugly, like really, really ugly. So another thing that I didn't like is I didn't have a way for zip tying or attaching the LC1. So on version 2, I have little cutouts for this. And then it loads from the back side. If I can do this one-handed, we'll see. And then it flushes everything in. Pretty nice. It's a nice little beveled edge around the whole entire thing. It still pops off if he wants to remove it. It doesn't move or anything for CDs. CDs go directly in the first slot there. The LC1 attaches just fine. The mic's got a placement on the back side for the nub that usually pops into a socket to sit, to orient this in a correct way, and I'll do a little dab of CA glue holding that in place. Oh, fell out, but you get the idea there. And then I made these little notches for a zip tie to attach the wires so that we're not putting any tension on the solder joints themselves. All in all, pretty happy with this design. I'm going to make sure it fits inside the car, and then I'm going to worry about making a little faceplate for it so it doesn't look like raw ASA. So the orientation of this thing getting printed too is this was on the bed, and then it printed layer by layer up this way. So this was the first chunk of ASA that I used, and then I switched rolls, and you can see the second one. And then the third one, this big old harsh line right there, was I had an entanglement. So the third roll was included with that entanglement. Fourth roll, fifth roll, and then the final roll to finish it off. But the only thing the customer's ever going to really see is the face, and that's going to get covered too. So all this is basically support structure. None of it's for a visual aspect. So I'm not too worried about those steps. Well, well, well. Look who didn't think about something. The radio does not sit symmetrically with the bezel, so the radio is going to have to move to the driver's side an 1/8 inch or so. Microphone's going to have to get moved up. Bass knob's going to have to be moved up. So it looks like there's going to be a version 3 of this sucker. The gap though between the bezel and what will be the radio dash kit is beautiful, if I could say so myself, which I can, so I did. So yeah, we're going to go and do some corrections, get something on the printer tonight, and mess with it again in the morning. So I scribed the bezel onto the ASA, so you can see that line on the perimeter there. Left side of the kit, which is the driver's side, can probably be pushed out about a 1/16 before it runs into factory issues. Bottom can grow, which doesn't need to, just making a statement. Passenger side can grow quite a bit actually, and then the top can grow about an 1/8 inch. I said quite a bit, but that is probably about 3/8 of an inch. This is hard to show you. Okay. You get the idea. Alright. So, this screw is through the sheet metal. This screw is through the sheet metal. and then so on. So there's 4 screws into the sheet metal. It sits in the gap between the plate there and the top of the rear deck. And then, sorry, lighting situation is kind of rough here. We'll see right there. So I'm gonna leave all the sheet metal alone. Didn't have to do anything super crazy. Just 4 little 1/8 inch holes just to hold that plate up. And she's stout. She's not going anywhere. Ooh, ah. She unmounted. Sorry, terrible view, but pretty happy with that. I see you. Version 3 of the dash kit is on its way. Got about 2 more hours. 2 hours, 45 minutes left. Alright, back late at the shop tonight. I did not spend near enough time here this weekend than what I really should have. But anyways, we are here. We got version 3 here. This is version 2. As you can see, oh, I lied. This is version 2. This is version 3. As you can see, this one here has a radio kind of pushed over to the driver's side. And then I just made a couple just kind of cosmetic changes as well of the side profile, just to save some weight and just easier for the printer. And then I also scooted both. See version 2? I scooted both the LC1, the bass knob, and the microphone up some so that it looks better on the kit. And then I also, as you can see there, twisted the cutout just ever so slightly for the LC1, just so I could bring it all the way up to the tippy top there as far as I possibly could without it eating into the dash kit part. So this is just the rough ASA from the print bed itself. It doesn't look the best. You could always just bodywork it and paint it if you want to, but instead I think you need a little something in the middle. So I made up with this out of some roll mark. So it's just a laserable material that has 2 colors. This one is matte black up top, the bottom is silver. So it kind of works with the Sony logo with that silver popping through, kind of gives it a nice classic feel. Didn't want to overdo it here with something on top. I wasn't sold on this idea, or maybe possibly putting this here on top to give it a little bit more of a dimensional look, but that can go on after the fact, so I'll see what it looks like in the car and kind of just go from there. Alright, radio is now centered with the dashboard. If you remember from yesterday, or if you've seen the story, it wasn't centered with everything. I moved the knob up as far as the kit would allow me to. It's not quite centered between the negative space between here and the top of the radio, but that's as high as I can make it. I just made that the microphone, I just made symmetrical. So the question is, do I leave it like this? Let me get you the whole idea there. Old school dash. Or do I change up the logo a little bit? Just ever so slightly. Like that. Kind of gives it a kind of a cassette feel, and then, you know, it takes the hard 90-degree angles off of this thing. Tell me what you think. I'm down with either or. I think both of them look pretty good. The amp rack's been cut out too. As you can see, I'm using birch just for the structural integrity of it. So we have 3/4 inch PVC, but I wanted to use birch anyways because it's going to get attached to the enclosure. You'll see more about that later on. But basically the important thing about this is making sure that this is mounted properly. I've got plenty of room for my wiring, and then this big old block sits proud of the amplifier, and you'll see why later on. Let's check some grounds. Okay, running through 17 foot of 4 gauge, acceptable. Let's go to the casing of the alternator. Well, that's not the best. Let's go to the chassis. Uh-oh. Well, I don't think it had a chassis ground, but it does now. I'm going to have to get a different groundman for this thing, and I'm going to see about replacing the motor ground as well, because that shouldn't be reading as high as it was. But I have the black going to the chassis, and then I was checking my ground point whenever I noticed it was terrible. But if we see what it is now, we're Gucci now. And now we're reading good between the alternator case and the negative of the battery too. So it's missing a chassis ground. All right, amp is partially mounted, wires are partially ran. Everything sits underneath and between these two bricks. The two bricks are gonna be a mounting area for the sub enclosure. The sub enclosure is gonna mount between those two bricks, and using these factory holes here, I'm gonna side mount some screws too, so that enclosure doesn't move on everything. Pretty happy with it. The amp rack mounts just with currently 2 screws, those there too, but I'm gonna also put some over here in this area, maybe one more up top here, and then to tune the amplifier. It's pretty easy to get to. Just gotta remove the back seat. Back seat is literally 2 bolts to get out. I've got the most complex part of this sub enclosure kind of designed. I'll show you how I kind of made that up. So it's nothing but a bunch of angle cuts. And then just for the sake of working with it, I went ahead and just brad nailed it in 3 different spots. Basically it's just a 26-degree cut here, a 22-degree cut here, and a 22-degree cut there. But just mocking it up like this makes sure you don't waste any wood or time. All right, let's figure out some airspace. So right here I have that bottom profile and the back profile. What it is, basically transfer that to my side piece. And then it's just some simple geometry. So from the internal dimensions, which is this line here, it's kind of hard to see because of the pencil mark. I took the internal of that and divided it between rectangles and triangles. The cool thing about that is it's simple geometry. So to find the area of a rectangle, you know it's length times width, and then you get your measurement. Well, for a triangle, if you got a 90-degree angle, it's just as easy. So it's 8 times 8 to get the rectangle, which is 64. Divide by 2 because it's half of the rectangle. 32 is my inside. You take all those values and then you add all of them up, and then what you get is the area of this side profile. It's 2-dimensional, which is 192.49. Basically take that times your width of the box. So then you've got your cubic square inches. So cubic square inches of this enclosure will be 2598.75. Take that and then you divide it by 1 square cube, which is 12 inches by 12 inches by 12 inches, and then it gets you your airspace. This is before displacement of the driver itself, so it looks like this enclosure is 1.5 feet cubed before displacement. All glued up now, so basically what I do is each side of these joints here, I tape the back side 2 layers down, then put some tension on the back side, put my dab of glue, fold that thing together so the tape keeps the tension on this side, and I clean the excess glue on the back side and put a bead of CA glue. After that's set up, I take my brad nailer and I brad nail some junk wood on one side, put some tension on it, and brad nail at an angle on the other side, so it's always under tension while that is curing. So that's how this joint and this joint's done. And this end here is just a simple joint. This tape's not doing anything anymore, so I just brad nailed into it. So box is all the way assembled, and it looks very underwhelming. So I'm gonna see if I can't do something to make it look a little snazzy. I feel like I say this about every week, but every Lincoln Continental needs a set of DC Shoes white belts. Yeah, I know it doesn't make sense, but trust the process. Face cover for the grill. Start for the face cover of the sub enclosure. It's coming together. And that's how you make a purse strap, or in my situation, a handle. So you'll see how I finish this as a handle. Basically, I'm going to do the same thing again, but I'm going to fold this over on itself. I have my starting point and my finish point marked out now. So now I'm sewing through 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 layers of vinyl. So things can get a little crooked sometimes. So working and making sure it gets straight. That's where the skill comes in. You'll see this stitch, so I'm not going crazy with my safety stitch. Just doing one back and forth. Keep my speed low. And I see my space pin mark right here, showing where I need to stop. Okay, pull that out. And now, this can be either a handle this way or like this. It's probably going to go like this. Old school handle. Well, I can't show you guys everything just yet, but I was going to go with the white, but I am definitely going with the black. Between the gray and the blue, it looks the best. I wanted to go white because the seats are this dark blue and an off-white, but this white, being as pure as it is, just looks generic. It looks bad. So we're going to flip these suckers over and use the black side. I'm going to make the wild assumption that he's not going to want this on the belt. No more DC shoes. I love it. Tell me what you think. It's the nicest bowling bag you'll ever see.